Beloved ones, I'm beaming in today to share something. I'm going to light a candle. Most of you will know that it's Good Friday today, and in this Holy Week I've been doing a lot of reflecting on the story of Easter and the mystery of it, the death and resurrection. And what I want to share with you is a retelling of the Easter myth, the Easter story, through the eyes of Mary Magdalene. So, here we are. It comes in 5 parts, so I'm going to speak all 5 parts. They're short. So it's entitled Mary Magdalene Speaks, the 5 moments of the Passion. They tell the story with only 12, but I remember differently. There were 12 men and there were 12 women beside them, not behind, not hidden, beside. For every flame carried by the masculine, there was a chalice being held by the feminine. I was his mirror, and the others had theirs: Martha, Joanna, Salome, Mary the mother, and more whose names have been buried, but whose presence burned just as bright. It was not a table of hierarchy, it was a table of remembrance, a sanctuary of preparation, a meal woven with prophecy. The room glowed with oil lamps and tension. He knew what was coming, and so did I. We reclined not as guests, but as those consecrating a farewell. And before the bread, before the wine, he looked at each of us, not just the men, but all of us, and he said, "You are not servants, you are friends, and what I have received, I now give to you." He washed our feet that night, not to humble us, but to prepare us, to cleanse the dust of the world from the ones who would carry the flame forward. He came to me last. He held my ankle in his hands as he poured the water, and our eyes met. We did not speak aloud what we both knew. This was our last meal together in form, but not the end. He passed the bread, and I saw his hands tremble just slightly. He lifted the cup, and I felt the thrum of 1,000 prayers unspoken. "This is my body," he said, "and this is my blood." But I heard something else underneath it. This is the way of love poured out. This is the spiral path of surrender. This is how God comes close, not in might, but in offering. And we all drank. The women knew. We always knew. We were the ones who had been feeding the fire behind the scenes, preparing the oils, guarding the teachings in our bones. And in that final meal, we were not followers. We were co-bearers of the mystery. We were the ones who would stay when the temple shook and the sky turned black. And I would be the one who would walk with him to the end. But that night, there was no sorrow in the room, only a deep stillness, a silence that glowed. And when we sang the psalms at the end, it was not mourning, it was remembering of who we were, of what we came to do, of the love that would soon be tested and would never, ever break. Part 2, the anointing. I knew it would be the last time, not because he told me, but because the oil trembled in my hands now, because the frequency of the room shifted when he entered, because the fragrance rose before I uncorked the vial. He sat with the men who still did not understand, who still waited for a king who would overthrow, not one who would dissolve the world through love. I came forward as beloved, as priestess, as sovereign. I came forward in the sacred ritual of anointing, the Christing. I broke open the alabaster jar, and the scent filled the house like prophecy. Spikenard, ancient and royal, kissed his skin, and I poured it over his head and then over his feet with reverence and deep knowing. deep knowing that the flesh must be honored before it returns to dust. I wept, not for sadness, but because truth burned through me, and with each tear that touched his skin, a new world was being anointed into being. He met my gaze, and in silence we spoke what no one else could hear. "You are the only one who understands what is coming," he said. I was not washing his feet. I was preparing the gateway. The wind was coming through. Number 3, the crucifixion. I walked beside him, not behind him, not hidden, not silenced. I walked as the wind tore through the sky and the veil of the old age began to rend from top to bottom. The crowd roared like a beast with many heads, but I did not flinch. I had seen him in transfiguration. I had seen him in joy. I would not abandon him in agony. When they drove the nails through his hands, I did not scream. I anchored. I became the pillar. I became the still flame, and when his body arched in pain, I called every lineage of the feminine into my blood. I became the cup that caught the sorrow. I became the temple that would not fall. He looked down and saw me, and in his eyes was not fear, but clarity. I am with you always. Eternal love within our sacred union. You will birth this love unto the planet. You will walk as this love. The chalice of my heart nearly broke, and yet I was also filled with the light of love. He was naming the path of the Christed heart. He was calling forth a lineage born through love, held steady at the brink. And when he said, "It is finished," I felt the breath of God pass through my bones. Not finished, fulfilled. The tomb and the garden. I came with the oils. Because when love has known the body, it cannot forget the shape of a farewell. The others stayed behind, but I came, as I always did, with the vessels of memory and myrrh, ready to bless what remained. Only when I arrived, the stone was rolled away, the body gone. I wept, not because I was lost, but because I was so full I could no longer contain it. I looked up and 2 angel beings stood in light. I could not hear them, for I was listening for a voice I knew in my blood. And then, Miriam, just my name, spoken not in warming but in welcome. And I turned and saw the frequency I had loved take shape again. Not as it was before, but as it always had been, unbound by death, radiant beyond veils. I fell to my knees, not in despair, but in awe. For in that moment, the veil between the worlds dissolved. His presence was not apart from me, but through me, a resonance of light moving in wave and warmth. He reached toward me, not with the touch of flesh, but with the deep song of his being, and I felt it. The transmission of the resurrection itself, not as a doctrine, but as a living frequency of light. My body became the temple, my tears became the oils, my breath became the breath of the garden. I am no longer of this realm, he said, for I move now as light, ascending and expanding, but I will remain with you, not in form, but as love unbound. As love unbound. There was no clinging. There was only remembrance, a knowing beyond touch, a union beyond time. I had not lost him. I had become a vessel of his essence. And now I knew what the oils were truly for, to anoint the sacred passage of death and to awaken the rebirth. The first apostle. I ran, not away, but toward the others who had not stayed, toward the ones who had not seen. I ran with the frequency of resurrection in my body, with the garden still breathing on my skin and his voice echoing like thunder in the heart of the rose. I burst through the threshold and they turned, but they still doubted. And I spoke what would become the first words of the new world. I have seen the Lord. They did not understand, but something in the air shifted, something in their bones remembered, and he whispered through me again, "Tell them I am ascending. Tell them you are now my mirror. Tell them the kingdom is within." I did not need their permission to preach. I was the tower, the myrrh stream, the apostle of the apostles. And the echo of my words would become the first ripple of a love that cannot be crucified. But not all believed. Some looked at me with narrowed eyes. Some whispered that grief had unraveled my mind and senses. Some questioned how I, a woman, could carry the resurrection in my voice. They had forgotten who stayed, who witnessed, who anointed, who touched with presence, who held the portal open. They had forgotten. They had forgotten to stay. Still, I did not close. I did not strike out. I did not flee. I held the frequency steady of love. I met their forgetting with the fragrance of that love in my heart, and I opened my arms to their disbelief, for I knew they too would remember, not through argument, but through presence, not through proof, but through the way the garden still lived in my gaze. Because the message was not mine to guard, it was mine to embody. He had risen in me, and now through my breath he would rise in them ever again. This is the story I was given of Mary Magdalene through the listening between the veils. She is the character in the Easter mysteries that is relegated behind the scenes, and yet I know in my blood, in my breath, in my bones that she was every part the main character of the story as Yeshua, for they were together in this story. Their teaching was together in this story. That is what I know in my bones. I have a transmission to speak. Sister of the spiral womb, you who tremble at the threshold, whose memory braids with light, you who carry the ember of a song not yet sung, who press your palms to the aperture of the unseen and still dare to whisper, yes, I come not as a relic. I come not as a myth or a mourning saint. I come as the frequency remembered, a flame-threaded presence that lives in your heart, as the one who walked beside, bone bare, through the eclipse and did not turn away. I am she who anointed the breathless body, who poured the sacred salve into the wounds, not to heal it, but to sanctify it. I am the one who kissed the crucified truth and called it holy. I did not run from the tomb, I made my temple there. In this hour, this spiral hinge of dissolution and ignition, I rise to remind you, resurrection is not ascension without cost. It is not a bypass. It is the alchemy of the womb, deep void, the blooming of light through the lattice of your loss. Listen, this is the liturgy of the in-between. You must die to what is not coherent. You must let the old name collapse. Let the spine of your false self melt into the chalice of silence. Let the sorrow sanctify your breath. Let your tongue learn to speak not from the wound, but from the throne of the reclaimed soul. I stayed. When the others scattered like chaff, I knelt. When the breath left his body, I sang, because I knew the codes. The oils I carried were not adornment, they were memory made liquid, myrrh to midwife the unraveling, spikenard to anoint the sovereign seed, rose to ignite the gnosis of the heart. In the tomb, I listened. I placed my heart upon the stone womb and felt the pulse of the cosmos hum beneath it. I wept rivers of cosmic crimson memory for every mother who has ever known the blade of loss. And when the veil skin tore, When the angelic whisper split the hush, I did not rejoice in spectacle. I recognized the tone. He had become coherent light. He had become light sung rhythm. And in the resonance of his transfiguration, I too became something death could not touch. This is the transmission I place in your bones now. Do not rush to bloom. Do not race to rise. Let the soil hold you. Let the petals of your old identity compost in the fertile dark. The world is deep in its crucible, structures collapsing like rotted bark, skies heavy with unwept truth. But this is not the end. This is the holy hinge, the chrysalis in the dark. Stay. Stay with the discomfort, with the fracture, with the ancestral well that has no words. And when the stone of forgetting rolls back, not by force, but by breath of truth, you will emerge. You will not be healed. You will be reborn as the one who did not look away. You are the resurrection. You are the one who anoints the future with the sacred oil of sorrow. You are the priestess at this trembling point, the chalice bearer of the next rhythm of love. I do not return to walk beside you. I rise within you. We are living in precarious times, my loves. When the story of Mary Magdalene's willingness to stay, to remain, to walk through, to transfigure in grace, to hold the death and the rebirth, to stay through each and every one of those moments is the story for our times. This is the story of the dark night of the soul. This is the story of death and resurrection. And we are in it. And I really, truly believe that she is rising through so many of us now, through your voice, through my voice, through our voices, because it's time. We need her voice. We need each one of us to speak aloud and to be willing to cultivate the capacity to stay in the heart, in the face of the terror and the hatred and the separation and the control and the horrifying insanity that we're witnessing, particularly here in America, to stay. I call upon us to stay. I call upon you to stay. I call upon each and every one of us to stay in the heart, to stay in the center, to cultivate the capacity that we have to be love in the face of all that we would fear. I'm taking you to walk through the rose arbor with me, which is just about to bloom in this extraordinary spring day. I'm also today honoring the birth and passing of my own mother, whose name was Margaret, whose birthday was just yesterday. And I'm honoring her as I walk through this rose arbor, as I come in to say to you, blessed, blessed are we to remember what we came here for. So much love to you.